The security camera at my steel plant pinged my phone at 2 in the morning. I was sitting in my study in Mount Lebanon, half asleep in my leather chair, with a glass of bourbon going warm on the desk. The alert was from Camera 7, the one covering the employee break room on the east side of the mill. Nobody should have been in that building. The night shift ended at 11. The furnaces were banked. The whole place should have been dark and dead. I picked up my phone and opened the feed. The image was grainy, washed in that sickly green of night vision. But I saw movement. A figure on the old army cot we keep for the guys who pull double shifts, and then a smaller shape, curled tight against the first one. A child. My blood went cold. I sat up so fast the bourbon glass tipped and rolled off the desk. I did not bother picking it up. I zoomed in on the feed. The larger figure shifted. And for a brief second, the face caught the glow of the vending machine across the room. I knew that face. I built that face. It was my son, Anthony. Tony, 33 years old, a certified public accountant who graduated summa cum laude from Carnegie Mellon. He was lying on a cot in my steel mill at 2 in the morning with my 6-year-old grandson pressed against his chest like the boy was the only warm thing left in the world. I did not call. I did not text. I grabbed my keys, pulled on my work boots over my bare feet, and walked straight to the garage. The Ram started with a roar that split the silent neighborhood. I did not care. I backed out of the driveway and hit the road toward the Strip District. The streets were empty. Pittsburgh in December is a ghost town after midnight. The bridges were glazed with black ice, and the wind coming off the Allegheny River cut through the truck windows like a blade. I made it to Rossi Steelworks in 14 minutes. The gate was locked. The code was the same one we have used for 20 years. The lot was empty except for a rusted Ford pickup I did not recognize. Parked in the shadows behind the loading dock, I pulled up next to it and killed the engine. Silence. Just the wind howling through the steel beams of the main fabrication hall. I walked to the east entrance. The door was unlocked. I pushed it open, and the smell hit me. Industrial grease, cold metal, and something else. Something human. Stale sweat. Fear. I walked down the corridor, my boots echoing on the concrete floor. The break room door was cracked open. A thin line of yellow light spilled out from the vending machine inside. I pushed the door open. Tony was on the cot. He was wearing 2 hooded sweatshirts and a wool cap pulled low over his ears. His face was gaunt. His cheekbones jutted out in a way that told me he had not eaten properly in days. Dominic was tucked into the curve of his father's body, wrapped in a thin blanket that I recognized as the emergency thermal from the first aid kit on the wall. The boy was clutching an empty bag of vending machine pretzels like a stuffed animal. The room was freezing. The heat in this section had been off since we shut down the east wing for renovations. My grandson was sleeping in a building that was barely warmer than the outside air. I did not knock. I stepped in and put my hand on Tony's shoulder. What happened next will haunt me for the rest of my life. My son did not wake up gently. He exploded. He threw himself backward off the cot, crashing into the wall, his arms flying up in front of his face. His eyes were wide and white with terror. He was shaking violently, his hands raised in surrender, palms out, fingers splayed. "Please," he gasped. His voice cracked like a boy's. "Please, officer. We are leaving. We just needed to rest. Please, do not tow the truck. I will move it right now. Please do not take my son." He could not see me. His eyes had not adjusted from sleep. He thought I was a cop. He thought I was there to drag him away from his child. He was bracing for a blow that never came. "Tony," I said. I kept my voice low and steady. "It is Dad. It is me. Open your eyes." He blinked. Once. Twice. His pupils contracted as the dim yellow light registered. He saw my face, and then the man I raised, the boy who used to climb on my shoulders at Steelers games, the young man who gave a flawless valedictorian speech without a single note card. That man crumbled. He slid down the wall and sat on the cold concrete floor. He buried his face in his hands and sobbed. Not quiet tears. Deep, racking, broken sobs that shook his whole frame. Dominic woke up. He sat up on the cot, blinking, confused. Then he saw me, and his face split into a grin that nearly broke my heart. "Grandpa!" he shouted, scrambling out of the blanket. He ran to me and wrapped his arms around my leg. His little hands were like ice. His nose was red. He smelled like salt and stale crackers. I put my hand on his head and looked at my son on the floor. "Tony, tell me what happened. Tell me right now." He looked up at me through his fingers. His eyes were bloodshot and rimmed with dark purple circles. "She called the cops. Dad." He choked on the words. "Chelsea. She told them I kidnapped Dominic. She had a court order. She changed the locks. She said if I come within 500 feet of the house, they will arrest me." I grabbed Dom from his room before she got home, and we ran. I did not know where else to go. I looked at my grandson clinging to my leg. I looked at my son dissolving on the floor of a freezing steel mill. I felt something old and dangerous wake up inside my chest, something I had not felt since the early days, when I was 25 years old fighting union shakedowns and crooked inspectors who tried to bury my family business. "Get up," I said. My voice did not shake. "Get Dominic. We are leaving this place. No one sleeps on concrete while I am still breathing." I carried Dominic to my truck. The boy weighed almost nothing. He wrapped his arms around my neck and buried his cold face into my collar. I could feel his ribs through his thin jacket. Tony followed behind me like a ghost, his head down, his shoulders caved inward. He climbed into the passenger seat without a word. I buckled Dominic into the back, cranked the engine, and turned the heater to maximum. The vents roared to life, pushing hot air into the frozen cabin. We sat there for a minute. Nobody spoke. The heat began to thaw the ice on the inside of the windshield. Dominic sighed in the back seat, the kind of sigh a child makes when they finally feel safe. Within 2 minutes, he was asleep again, his head tilted against the window, his breath fogging a small circle on the glass. I pulled out of the lot and turned onto Smallman Street, heading toward the highway. The city was dead. Just streetlights and snow and the occasional garbage truck grinding through the dark. I waited until we were on the bridge, the black water of the Allegheny sliding beneath us, before I spoke. "Tell me everything," I said. "From the beginning. Do not leave anything out." Tony stared straight ahead. His hands were shaking in his lap. He pressed them between his knees to stop the trembling. "It started 3 months ago," he said. His voice was flat, emptied of emotion, like a man reading his own autopsy report. "Chelsea changed. She became distant. She started fights over nothing. She would scream at me in front of Dominic about money, about the house, about how I never provided enough. But I did not understand, because we were fine. We had the savings. We had my income. We had the education fund you set up for Dom." "What education fund?" I asked, though I already knew the answer would make me sick. "The 500,000, Dad." Tony closed his eyes. "The fund you set up when Dominic was born. You put it in a joint trust. Chelsea and I were both signatories. Last month, I tried to access the account to move some into a college savings plan. The balance was zero. $500,000. Gone. I gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles went white. "When?" I asked. "The transfers started 8 weeks ago," Tony said. "Small amounts at first. 10,000. 20,000. Then larger. 50. 100. By the time I noticed, it was all gone. Every cent. And you asked her about it." Tony let out a sound that was halfway between a laugh and a sob. "I asked her. She looked me dead in the eyes and told me I was imagining things. She said the account was never that high. She pulled up bank statements on her laptop that showed a completely different transaction history. I thought I was losing my mind, Dad. I thought I was going crazy. He turned to look at me. His eyes were wet, but there was something deeper than sadness in them. There was shame. The kind of shame that eats a man alive from the inside. Then she brought her parents into it, he continued. Warren and Diane showed up one afternoon while I was at work. When I got home, Chelsea was crying. She told them I had been threatening her. She told them I was having episodes. Blackouts. Violent outbursts. Were you? I asked. Not because I believed it. Because I needed to hear him say it. No, Tony whispered. But that is the thing, Dad. I do not remember some nights. I would come home. Chelsea would hand me a beer. She always had one ready. Cold. The way I like it. And 30 minutes later, the room would start spinning. I would wake up on the couch the next morning with no memory of the night before. And she would show me videos on her phone. Videos of me stumbling, yelling, knocking things off shelves. I did not remember any of it. I stored that information in the back of my mind. The beer. Every night. I did not say anything yet. I needed more. What happened with Warren and Diane? I asked. Tony's jaw tightened. They came back 2 weeks ago. With a doctor. Some guy I had never seen before. He had paperwork. An evaluation that said I was showing signs of acute psychotic disorder. He recommended immediate intervention. Involuntary commitment. Chelsea signed the consent as my spouse. They tried to commit you, I said. They did commit me. Tony corrected. 3 days in a facility on the north side. They pumped me full of something. I could not think. I could not talk. When I got out, the locks on my house were changed. My clothes were in garbage bags on the front lawn. Warren was standing on the porch with a baseball bat telling me if I came back, he would call the police and have me arrested for trespassing. In my own house, Tony said, his voice cracking. The house I pay the mortgage on. The house where my son sleeps. I watch the road. I did not trust myself to speak yet, Tony continued. I tried calling Chelsea. She would not answer. I called a lawyer, but they wanted a retainer I did not have because I could not access my accounts. She froze everything. She had the court paperwork ready before I even got out of the hospital. Restraining order. Emergency custody. All signed by a judge I have never heard of. And Dominic? I asked. I waited outside his school, Tony said. Tuesday afternoon. I watched from across the street until the bell rang. When he came out, I called him over. He ran to me, Dad. He ran to me crying. He said Mommy told him Daddy was sick. He said he was scared. He asked me if I was going to die. Tony put his hand over his mouth to muffle the sound that came out. I could not leave him there. I could not. So I took him. And I know that makes me a kidnapper in the eyes of the law. But I am his father. Where have you been for 4 days? I asked. The truck. The first night. Then the mill. I still have the old key card from when I worked summers in high school. Nobody checks that building anymore. 4 days. My son and my grandson, hiding in a freezing steel mill, eating vending machine food, sleeping on a cot, meant for iron workers pulling overtime, while his wife drove whatever luxury she had bought with my money and slept in a warm bed. I turned onto the highway toward Mount Lebanon. The lights of the city reflected off the low clouds, turning the sky an ugly orange. Tony looked at me, his eyes searching my face for judgment. I am sorry, Dad. I failed. I lost the money. I lost my home. I lost everything. I am a failure. I did not look at him. I looked at the road. You are not a failure, Tony, I said. You are a target. Somebody marked you, and they picked you apart piece by piece. But crying time is over. Wipe your face. Tonight, we go home. Tomorrow, we hunt. My estate in Mount Lebanon sits on 2 acres behind a stone wall and a wrought iron gate. I built it 30 years ago, when the company first turned a real profit. It is not flashy. It is solid, Brick and oak and thick glass that keeps the Pennsylvania winters on the outside where they belong. When I pulled through the gate at 3:15 in the morning, the porch light was already on. Mrs. Conti, my housekeeper for 22 years, was standing in the doorway in her bathrobe with a look on her face that said she already knew something was wrong. She did not ask questions. That is why I keep her. I carried Dominic inside, and she took one look at the boy, at his thin jacket and his red nose and his dirty fingernails, and she went straight to the kitchen. By the time I had settled Tony on the couch and wrapped a blanket around his shoulders, Mrs. Conti had chicken noodle soup heating on the stove and grilled cheese sandwiches sizzling in the iron skillet. Dominic woke up to the smell of food. His eyes went wide when he saw the kitchen, the granite countertops, the warm light over the island, the steam rising from the pot. He climbed onto a stool, and Mrs. Conti placed a bowl in front of him without a word. He ate like he had not seen a hot meal in a week. Because he had not. Tony sat next to his son. I put a mug of black coffee in his hands. He wrapped his fingers around it and stared into the dark liquid as if it held answers. The trembling in his hands was slowing. The color was starting to creep back into his face. Not much, but enough. I stood at the kitchen window and watched the snow fall. Big flakes, slow and heavy, blanketing the yard in white. The house was warm. The fire in the living room crackled softly. My grandson was eating. My son was breathing. For a brief, fragile moment, everything felt almost normal. I thought we had time. I thought the night would give us a few hours to rest, to plan, to figure out our next move in the morning when the sun was up and the world made sense again. I thought Chelsea would not know where to look. I thought she would assume Tony had fled the state. I was wrong. It started low, a distant hum that could have been a truck on the highway. But it grew. It grew fast. The hum became a wail that pierced through the heavy oak doors and the double-paned glass. Sirens. Not one. Several. Then the lights. Blue and red, flashing against the kitchen windows like a carnival from hell. They painted the fresh snow in chaotic bursts of color. The whole front yard lit up in alternating pulses of police blue and emergency red. Tony dropped his coffee mug. It shattered on the tile floor, splashing hot liquid across his boots. He did not flinch. He did not even look down. He just stared at me, with eyes full of absolute terror. "She found us," he whispered. "She tracked something. My phone. The truck. I do not know. But she found us." Dominic started to whimper. He slid off the stool and ran to his father, wrapping his arms around Tony's leg. His small body was shaking. He had heard sirens before. He knew what they meant. They meant strangers would come and take his daddy away. The doorbell rang. It was not a polite ring. It was a demand. Then the pounding started. Heavy fists against solid wood. The sound echoed through the foyer like a war drum. "Open up." "Lake Forest Police Department." "I have a warrant." I looked at Tony. "Stay here," I said. "Do not move. Do not speak until I tell you to." I walked to the foyer. My boots clicked on the marble. I straightened my back, set my jaw, and opened the front door. 3 squad cars were parked across my driveway, their light bars spinning. 5 officers stood on my porch. Their breath came out in white clouds. Their hands rested near their belts. Behind them, stepping out of the back seat of the lead cruiser like she was arriving at a charity gala, was Chelsea. She was wearing a white cashmere coat that fell to her knees. Her hair was perfect. Her makeup was perfect. There was not a single trace of the desperate mother who had been searching for her abducted child for 4 days. She looked like she had spent the evening at a spa, not pacing the floors in anguish. She saw me and her face transformed instantly. The composure cracked into a mask of anguished relief. She ran forward, pushing past the officers, her hands outstretched. "Oh God, Harrison," she cried. Her voice was pitched high, trembling with manufactured emotion. "Are they here? Is Dominic safe?" Please tell me Tony did not hurt him. I have been so scared. I have not slept in days. I looked at her eyes. They were dry. Not a single tear. The skin beneath them was smooth and rested. She had slept just fine. Officer Daniels, a broad man with a thick neck and a clipboard, stepped forward. He looked uncomfortable. Mr. Rossi, I apologize for the hour. We received a call from Mrs. Caldwell, excuse me, Mrs. Rossi, alleging that your son Anthony abducted their child Dominic 4 days ago. We have an emergency custody order signed by Judge Markham less than 90 minutes ago, granting full temporary custody to the mother based on imminent danger. He held up the paperwork. I could see the official seal even in the porch light. It was real. It was legal. And it meant I had no power to stop what was about to happen. This is my home, I said, keeping my voice level. My son is inside with his child. They are eating soup. Nobody is in danger. Sir, Officer Daniels said firmly, we have a court order. If you obstruct this, we will be forced to arrest you as well. That will not help your grandson. I looked past him at Chelsea. She had positioned herself behind the officers, dabbing at her dry eyes with a tissue. She caught my gaze, and for one brief second, the mask slipped. I saw it, a flicker of triumph in those cold green eyes, a smile that lasted less than a heartbeat. She was winning, and she knew it. I heard Dominic's voice behind me. Small, frightened. Grandpa? Why are the police here? Are they going to take Daddy again? Again. The word hit me like a fist to the sternum. This child had already watched his father get dragged away once, and it was about to happen a second time. I did not answer Dominic. I could not, because the truth was yes. They were going to take his daddy again, and there was nothing I could do to stop it without making everything worse. I knew the law. I spent 40 years navigating permits, zoning boards, city inspectors, and union contracts. I knew that if I put my body between those officers and my son, they would arrest me. And if I got arrested, Tony would have no one. Dominic would have no one. Chelsea would have a clear field. I had to swallow it. All of it. The rage. The injustice. The primal scream building in my chest. I had to choke it down and stand still. The officers moved past me into the house. Tony was standing in the hallway, Dominic clinging to his leg. He had heard everything. His face was gray. His hands were raised, palms out. The universal gesture of a man who knows resistance is futile. Please, Tony said. His voice was calm but thin as paper. I just wanted to feed him. He was hungry. I did not hurt anyone. Sir, step away from the child, Officer Daniels commanded. His tone was professional but final. There was no negotiation in it. Tony looked at me. His eyes asked a question he could not speak aloud. Dad, do something. Fix this. You always fix things. I gave him the slightest nod. A promise without words. Not now, but soon. Tony knelt down. He put his hands on Dominic's shoulders and looked into his son's face. Hey, buddy, listen to me. Daddy has to go with these men for a little while. But Grandpa is here. You are safe. I will come back. I promise. No, Dominic wailed. His voice split the air like a siren of its own. No, Daddy. Do not go. Do not leave me. I want to stay with you. The officers did not wait for the goodbye to finish. Two of them stepped forward, took Tony by the arms, and turned him around. They pressed him against the hallway wall. The click of the handcuffs was sharp and metallic. It echoed off the marble floor like a gunshot. Dominic screamed. A high, raw, animal sound that tore through my chest and lodged somewhere behind my ribs where it would stay for the rest of my life. He lunged forward, reaching for his father. His small hands grabbed at Tony's shirt. An officer gently but firmly pulled him back. Chelsea swept in. She dropped to her knees and wrapped her arms around Dominic, pulling him against her chest. "It is okay, baby," she cooed. "Mommy is here. The bad part is over. You are safe now." But Dominic did not melt into her. He went rigid. His arms stayed at his sides. He turned his head and looked back at his father being marched toward the front door. His little face was a mask of confusion and betrayal that no 6-year-old should ever have to wear. I watched them lead Tony out. His head was down. His shoulders were shaking. He did not resist. He did not shout. He had already been broken once by this system, and he did not have the energy to fight it again. Not yet. The officers guided him into the back of the squad car. The door slammed shut. Through the window, I could see Tony's face illuminated by the dashboard lights. He was staring straight ahead. Empty. Chelsea stood up, still holding Dominic's hand. She smoothed her coat and turned toward the door. Then she paused. She looked back at me with an expression of such convincing sorrow that for a split second I almost believed it. She walked toward me. The officers were distracted, filing paperwork on their clipboards near the cruisers. Chelsea leaned in close enough that I could smell her perfume. It was expensive, the kind that comes in small bottles with French names, the kind that costs more than a week's groceries for most families. To the officers, it looked like a grieving daughter-in-law seeking comfort from a worried grandfather. But her whisper was a blade. "Dad, I am so sorry you have to see him like this," she murmured. Her breath was warm against my ear. "I tried to protect you from the truth. Tony has a problem. A serious problem." She pulled back slightly and looked at me with wide, earnest eyes, full of manufactured concern. "He gambles, Dad. Online poker. Sports betting. It started small, but it consumed him. The $500,000 in Dominic's fund? He lost it. All of it. In 8 weeks. When I confronted him, he became violent. He threw a chair through our kitchen window. I had to call his parents for help. Her parents. Warren and Diane Price. The people who threw my son's belongings on the lawn. Chelsea reached into her oversized handbag and pulled out a folded stack of papers. She pressed them into my hand. "These are the bank statements," she said. I found them hidden in his desk drawer. "Look at the transfers. DraftKings, BetMGM, FanDuel. It is all there. Hundreds of thousands gone in weeks." She squeezed my hand, her manicured nails pressing into my skin. "Please do not bail him out, Dad. The doctors say he needs to hit rock bottom before he can recover. Let them take him to the psychiatric unit for evaluation. It is for his own good, for Dominic's good." She released my hand, wiped a perfectly timed tear from her cheek, and walked out into the snow. She buckled Dominic into the back seat of her car. That was when I saw it clearly for the first time. The car was a BMW X7, midnight black, brand new. The temporary plates were still in the rear window. That vehicle cost at minimum $90,000. On her wrist, catching the blue police lights as she adjusted Dominic's seatbelt, was a gold Rolex Datejust. $30,000 retail. I did the math. Chelsea had not worked in over a year. She said Tony gambled away every penny. She claimed they were drowning in debt, yet she was standing in front of me draped in over $100,000 of luxury that did not exist 6 months ago. A woman married to a degenerate gambler does not buy a new BMW. A family drowning in debt does not wear a Rolex. And a father who just lost $500,000 to addiction does not steal his child and hide in a freezing steel mill eating vending machine pretzels. He goes to a motel. He calls a friend. He does not hide in the dark unless he is terrified of something far worse than debt. I watched the convoy pull away. The blue and red lights faded down my driveway and disappeared into the snowfall. The house fell silent. The soup was cold on the counter. Dominic's small boot prints were still wet on the foyer floor. I looked down at the papers in my hand. I did not need to read them to know they were fake, but I would read them anyway. And then I would burn them. I closed the door. The warmth of the house meant nothing now. The fire in the hearth was just decoration. The real fire was in my chest, and it was growing. A marketing assistant does not drive a $90,000 car. A thief does. And this thief had just made the worst mistake of her life. She had taken my son in front of me. She had put her hands on my grandson, and she had looked me in the eye and lied. The war had begun, and she did not even know it. I did not sit down. I did not pour a drink. I did not allow myself a single minute of grief. Grief is a luxury for men who have time. I did not have time. All crime. All I. My son was in the back of a police car, heading toward a psychiatric ward where they would drug him into silence. My grandson was in the hands of a woman who wore his stolen inheritance on her wrist. Every second I spent feeling sorry for myself was a second Chelsea used to tighten her grip. I walked straight to my study. The room is at the back of the house, behind a reinforced door with a deadbolt. No windows facing the street. Soundproofed walls from the days when I used to take business calls at 3 a.m. during overseas projects. I closed the door and locked it. The safe is behind a painting of the Pittsburghs. The heavy steel door swung open. Inside was cash, 50,000 in banded hundreds. My black ledger, the one that holds every contact I have made in 4 decades of construction. My passport, and a Sig Sauer 9mm that I have not fired in 10 years. I took the cash and the ledger. I left the gun. You cannot fight this war with bullets. You fight it with paper and patience and the kind of cold fury that does not burn out. I sat at my desk and opened the ledger. The pages were worn soft from years of handling. Names, numbers, favors owed, favors given. I found the one I needed on page 37. Rachel Mancini. The most feared divorce and criminal defense attorney in Western Pennsylvania. She had represented me during a contract dispute in 2014. She cost me $80,000 and saved me $4 million. She was worth every cent. It was 10 minutes past 1 in the morning. I dialed her personal number. She answered on the 3rd ring. Her voice was sharp and alert. Sleep did not soften Rachel Mancini. "Vincent," she said. "Someone must be bleeding. They took my son, Rachel." I kept my voice flat. No emotion. Just information. His wife orchestrated a 5150 hold. Fabricated a doctor's evaluation. Got an emergency custody order signed by Judge Markham in the middle of the night. They are transporting him to UPMC Western Psychiatric right now. I heard the scratch of a pen on paper. She was already taking notes. "Go on," she said. $500,000 is missing from my grandson's education trust. Chelsea controlled the account. She is blaming it on a gambling addiction that does not exist. She is driving a new BMW and wearing a Rolex while telling me they are broke. "Is there documentation?" Rachel asked. She handed me fake bank statements tonight, showed transfers to gambling sites. I have not verified them yet, but I know they are fabricated. My son does not gamble. He does not even play cards at Thanksgiving. "What do you need from me tonight?" Rachel asked. Her voice had shifted into operational mode. No pleasantries, no sympathy, just strategy. "I need you at UPMC in 45 minutes, I said. "Bring a private physician. Someone with credentials that can override a county psych evaluation. Someone who can look at my son and confirm what I already know. He is not insane. He is being set up. I have someone," Rachel said immediately. "Dr. Farah Okafor, former chief of neuropsychiatry at Allegheny General. She is retired, but she still consults for my firm. I will call her now." "Good," I said. "And Rachel, bring the full package. I want a forensic accountant on standby for the morning. I want someone who can trace wire transfers and identify shell companies. This is not just a custody play. This is grand theft." "I will be at the intake desk in 40 minutes, Rachel said. She hung up without a goodbye. That is how I know she took it seriously. Rachel Mancini does not waste words. I made one more call. Gus Petrov, a private investigator who operates out of a cramped office above a pierogi shop in Lawrenceville. He is 60 years old, built like a fire hydrant, and he has the digital forensic skills of a man half his age. He worked for me during a corporate espionage case in 2018, found the mole in 6 days. Gus answered on the first ring. He never sleeps before 4. Vinny, he said. His voice was like gravel in a blender. What do you need? Everything, I said. I need you to find a company called Price Family Holdings. I need the registration documents, the officers listed, the bank accounts connected to it. I need you to find a black BMW X7 registered in the last 3 months to anyone named Price or Rossi. And Gus, I need you to find out how much debt Warren Price is carrying. Mortgages, business loans, gambling markers, all of it. Gus did not ask why. He never does. Timeline, he asked. Yesterday, I said. I hung up. I grabbed my coat and headed for the garage. The Ram was still warm. As I pulled out of the driveway and headed toward the hospital, my mind was working, connecting the pieces. Tony said Chelsea gave him a beer every night. Said he felt groggy 30 minutes later. Said he woke up with no memory. Said she showed him videos of behavior he did not recall. That was not a mental breakdown. That was chemical manipulation. Someone was putting something in those beers. Something that knocked him out and made him act erratic on camera. Something that gave her the footage she needed to convince a doctor, a judge, and the police that her husband was unstable. It was a setup. Textbook. Isolate the victim. Destroy his credibility. Strip him of his support system. Then, when he tries to tell the truth, he sounds like a madman. Nobody believes the raving lunatic. Everybody believes the crying wife. I had seen schemes like this in business. Corporate raiders who discredit a CEO before a hostile takeover. The playbook was identical. Chelsea was not a panicked wife. She was a predator, executing a plan. The highway was empty. The snowfall had thickened. I pushed the truck to 70 and watched the wipers beat against the accumulation. UPMC Western Psychiatric was 22 minutes away. My knuckles were white on the wheel, but my breathing was steady. When I pulled into the hospital parking lot at 2:15 in the morning, I saw Rachel's black Mercedes already parked near the emergency entrance. She was standing outside, her breath pluming in the frozen air, wearing a long wool coat and heels that clicked on the pavement like a metronome. Next to her was a tall woman with silver-streaked hair and a calm, intelligent face. Dr. Okafor. Rachel saw me approaching and nodded once. They have him on the 5th floor, she said. Sedated and restrained. No visitors for 24 hours per attending orders. I stopped walking and looked at her. Then we make it 0 hours, I said. Let us go. Rachel allowed herself the smallest smile. It was not warm. It was the smile of a woman who enjoyed dismantling institutions that abused their power. After you, Vincent, she said, and she fell into step behind me as we pushed through the glass doors into the harsh fluorescent light of the hospital lobby. The lobby of UPMC Western Psychiatric smelled like floor wax and human desperation. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, turning everything a sickly yellow-green. I walked to the reception window where a young man sat behind thick plexiglass, tapping at a keyboard without looking up. Name, he said, Vincent Rossi. I am here for my son, Anthony Rossi. Admitted 2 hours ago by police transport, he typed. Stared at his screen. Rossi. Anthony. 5150 hold. No visitors for 24 hours. Come back tomorrow. I leaned close to the glass and lowered my voice. Listen to me carefully. The woman behind me is Rachel Mancini. She sued Allegheny Valley Medical Center for $12 million last year and won. The woman next to her is Dr. Farah Okafor, former chief of neuropsychiatry for this hospital system. We believe my son has been falsely committed on a fraudulent affidavit. You have two choices. Call the administrator on duty and let us up, or be named personally in the federal lawsuit we file at 9 tomorrow morning. Your name is on that badge. Kevin. I can read it from here. Kevin looked past me at Rachel, who offered him nothing but the cold certainty of a woman who dismantled institutions for sport. He picked up the phone. 8 minutes later, the service elevator opened onto the 5th floor. The world changed. Silence. Oppressive, medicated silence. Pale green walls. Heavy metal doors with small reinforced windows. The air tasted of chemicals and despair. A shift supervisor met us. He is in 504, she said. End of the hall. But I warn you, he has been extremely agitated. He was sedated upon intake. We walked. My boots echoed on the linoleum. At the end of the corridor, I looked through the small window of room 504. My son was strapped to the bed. Wrists bound in leather restraints. Ankles the same. A paper hospital gown. His head rolling side to side on the thin pillow. Lips moving in an endless loop. I pressed my ear to the door. His voice came through, muffled. Not crazy. She took the money. Not crazy. Please. Someone believe me. Over and over. A prayer nobody was answering. Dr. Okafor swiped the key card. The lock clicked. We entered. Tony flinched when the hallway light hit his face. He yanked against the restraints, his eyes wide and unfocused. Tony, I said softly. It is Dad. I am here. His pupils were dilated far too wide. He struggled to form words. Dad. Is she here? Do not let her in. She put something in my beer. Every night. She stands there and watches me drink it. Dr. Okafor moved to the bedside. Penlight in his eyes. Pulse check. Then she lifted his left arm as far as the restraint allowed and examined the inside of his elbow. I stepped closer and saw it. A fresh puncture mark from tonight, but surrounding it, scattered across the soft skin, were older bruises. Yellow and green. 4, maybe 5 marks at varying stages of healing. This is not just from tonight, Dr. Okafor said. He has been injected before. Recently. Repeatedly. Some of these are over a week old. The 3 days Chelsea had him committed before throwing him out. They had been drugging him then, too. We need a full toxicology panel, Rachel said. Independent lab. Chain of custody. If there is poison in his system, we document it before it metabolizes. Dr. Okafor opened her medical bag. 2 vacuum-sealed blood vials. Surgical scissors for a hair sample. Tony, she said, I need to take blood and a small sample of hair. We are going to find out exactly what has been done to you. Tony squeezed my hand. His grip was weak. His skin was cold and damp. But his eyes found mine and held on like a drowning man gripping a rope. The money, Dad, he whispered. It is not gone. Before she locked me out, I saw a transfer code. Price Family Holdings. That is her parents. That is where every cent went. Price Family Holdings. Price. Chelsea's maiden name. Her parents, Warren and Diane. The people who threw my son's clothes on the lawn and called him a psychopath. I looked at Rachel. We have a trail, I said. Dr. Okafor finished drawing blood and sealed the hair sample in an evidence bag. She conducted a rapid cognitive exam. Date. President. Count backward from 100 by 7s. Tony answered every question, slowly, fighting through the chemical fog. But correctly, he is lucid, Dr. Okafor declared, turning to the nurse watching from the doorway. He is exhausted and shows clear signs of chemical suppression, but he is not psychotic. There are no medical or legal grounds to hold this man. Rachel produced a clipboard. Sign the release. Independent evaluation overrides the admitting physician under Pennsylvania Statute 4203. The nurse signed. Her jaw was tight with resentment, but she signed. 20 minutes later, Tony was dressed in the clothes I brought from home. Jeans, a heavy sweater, his old boots. We walked out of the ward, through the lobby, and into the parking lot. The December air hit us like a wall of ice. Tony stopped. He tilted his face up to the dark sky and breathed. The first free breath he had taken in hours. "It went to Price Family Holdings," he said again. "Every penny." I guided him toward the truck. "I know, son. Tomorrow, we find every cent. Tonight, you rest. I am taking you somewhere. She cannot find you." I pulled out of the lot and merged onto the empty highway. The city was dark. Snow was falling again, thick and silent. Somewhere out there, Chelsea was sleeping in a warm bed, wearing a Rolex bought with stolen money. Thinking her husband was strapped to a hospital bed where no one would believe a word he said. She had not won. She had just shown me exactly where to aim. I own a building on Liberty Avenue downtown. A converted warehouse with a penthouse on the top floor that does not appear on any public record. Biometric lock, private elevator, steel-reinforced doors. I bought it 12 years ago when a business partner tried to have me followed during a hostile acquisition. Since then, it has been my sanctuary. Nobody knows about it except Rachel and my accountant. Not even Tony knew it existed until I brought him there at 3:30 in the morning, half conscious from hospital sedatives, and put him to bed in the guest room. He slept for 9 hours. I did not sleep at all. I sat at the glass dining table with black coffee and my phone, coordinating with Gus and Rachel. By the time the winter sun crept through the floor-to-ceiling windows, the pieces were already moving. At 1 in the afternoon, the private elevator chimed. Dr. Okafor stepped out, carrying a thick manila envelope. Rachel was behind her, tablet in hand, face set in the grim line I had come to recognize as her war face. Neither of them was smiling. I called Tony from the guest room. He emerged looking better than the night before. The color had returned to his face. His eyes were clearer, but he moved carefully, like a man walking across thin ice, unsure if the ground beneath him was real. "Sit down, Tony," Dr. Okafor said. Her voice was calm but serious. "I need you to listen carefully." Tony sat on the edge of the leather sofa. He gripped the armrest with both hands. I stood behind him, my hand on his shoulder. Dr. Okafor opened the envelope and placed a lab report on the coffee table. "The private lab rushed these results at my request," she said. "We tested your blood for immediate substances and your hair follicles for a 3-month historical record of exposure." She pointed to a chart covered in red spikes. "The results are conclusive. Your system contains high concentrations of 2 substances. The first is a generic benzodiazepine, similar to Xanax. The second is zolpidem, commonly known as Ambien. Both are powerful sedatives that cause drowsiness, memory loss, confusion, and impaired motor function." Tony stared at the chart. His face was blank. "Processing. But that is not what concerns me most," Dr. Okafor continued. "The hair follicle analysis shows a clear pattern of exposure over the past 3 months. The dosage started low and increased steadily week by week. Whoever administered this was escalating. They were building your tolerance and increasing the amount to maintain the same effect." Tony's voice came out small. "What does that mean?" "It means you were being systematically poisoned," Dr. Okafor said. "The drugs explain everything. The memory blackouts, the confusion, the episodes of aggression your wife filmed. Benzodiazepines combined with zolpidem create a paradoxical reaction in some patients. Instead of simply falling asleep, the subject enters a dissociative state. They can walk, talk, even become physically agitated, but they have zero awareness or memory of their actions." Tony stood up abruptly. His water glass fell from the table and shattered on the hardwood floor. He did not notice. "She drugged me," he said. His voice was rising. "Every night. The beer, That craft IPA she started buying 3 months ago. She said it was from a local brewery. She said she wanted to support small business. She would pour it into a glass and hand it to me with a smile. She would not let me go to bed until I finished it. His hands were shaking. Not from cold. From the magnitude of the realization crashing over him. And then she filmed me. He continued, his voice cracking. I remember now. I would be stumbling, the room spinning, and she would be standing in the corner with her phone, asking questions. Why are you so angry, Tony? Why are you scaring Dominic? But I was not angry. I could not feel my legs. I could not see straight. And she was recording it all. He looked at me. His eyes were wide and wet. She showed those videos to the doctor, to the judge, to the police. She used them to prove I was insane. And the whole time, she was the one doing it to me. Tony turned and walked quickly to the bathroom. The door slammed. I heard violent retching. The sound of a man purging not just his stomach, but the last remnants of a life he thought was real. He was vomiting up the betrayal. 5 years of marriage. The mother of his child. The woman he trusted with his drink every single night. I stood in the living room and waited. Rachel spoke from the corner. Her voice cold and precise. This is not just assault, Vincent. The escalating dosage pattern is consistent with someone testing limits. If the progression had continued another 2 to 3 weeks at this rate, the next dose could have been lethal. Combined with the sedative already in his system from the hospital, a single large dose of benzodiazepine could have stopped his heart. This constitutes attempted murder. The bathroom went quiet. The door opened. Tony walked out. His face was wet. His eyes were red. But something had changed behind them. The fear was gone. The confusion was gone. What replaced it was harder. Colder. It was hate. He wiped his mouth with the back of his hand and looked at me. What do we do, Dad? I walked to him and put my hands on his shoulders. He felt solid. Steady. The trembling was gone. We give her exactly what she wants, I said. She wants money. She wants control. She wants you erased from the picture. So, we are going to offer it to her on a silver plate. We are going to dangle something so big and so shiny that she cannot resist reaching for it. And the moment her fingers close around it, we snap the trap shut so hard, she will never open her hand again. Tony nodded. His jaw was set. His eyes were dry. Okay, Dad, he said. Tell me what to do. First, you rest. You eat. You get that poison out of your system. Tomorrow, I go hunting. And Tony, the next time you see your wife, you will not be the man she drugged. You will be the witness who puts her in prison. Gus Petrov operates out of a second-floor office above a pierogi shop on Butler Street in Lawrenceville. There is no sign on the door, no name on the buzzer, just a faded number and a camera lens the size of a pinhead watching whoever stands on the stoop. I arrived at 11 at night, my eyes burning from 20 hours without sleep, but my mind running clean and sharp like a blade on a grindstone. The door buzzed open before I knocked. Gus was expecting me. His office is a cave of technology. 6 monitors mounted on the wall in a 2x3 grid, each displaying different streams of data. Server racks humming in the corner. The blue glow of screens was the only light. The air smelled of old coffee and ozone. Gus sat behind a desk buried in paper and fast food wrappers, his thick fingers moving across a keyboard with surprising speed for a man built like a refrigerator. He did not offer me a seat. He swiveled his chair and pointed to the largest monitor. Sit down, Vinny, he said. You paid for the truth. Here it is. I pulled up a metal folding chair and leaned forward. My hands were clasped between my knees. Gus typed a command. A map of the eastern United States appeared on the center screen. A red line traced a digital path from Pittsburgh to Delaware to Florida and back. Let us start with the money, Gus said. The $500,000 in Dominic's education trust. Tony had joint signatory access, But Chelsea was listed as the primary account holder. That means she could authorize transfers without his co-signature for amounts under $50,000. So she did it in chunks. Smart. Stayed under the threshold each time. He zoomed in on a corporate filing. The money went from the trust account to a business account held by an entity called Price Family Holdings LLC, registered in Delaware 3 weeks before the first transfer. The registered agent is a discount incorporation service in Wilmington. The listed address is a vacant lot next to a tire shop. A shell company, I said. A ghost, Gus confirmed. No employees. No product. No office. Just a bank account with a very hungry mouth. Now watch where your money went. He pulled up a spreadsheet. Transaction records from the Price Family Holdings account. The dates were recent. The ink was barely dry. First item. $212,000 wired to First National Bank of Ohio. I traced it. That is the mortgage holder on a property in Youngstown owned by Warren and Diane Price. Their house was in foreclosure. 90 days delinquent. The sheriff was weeks away from posting an eviction notice. This payment cleared the entire arrears and brought the loan current. Warren used my grandson's education fund to save his house, I said. It gets better. Gus replied. Second item. $91,000 to BMW of Pittsburgh. A black X7. Registered to Chelsea Price Rossi, purchased 6 weeks ago. Cash deal. No financing. The car I saw tonight. The car she drove to my house. To play the victim. Third item. Gus continued. $43,000. To Royal Caribbean. An owner's suite on the Odyssey of the Seas departing Fort Lauderdale next month. 5 passengers. Warren, Diane, Chelsea, Dominic, and 1 unnamed guest. They are taking my grandson on vacation, I said. The words tasted like acid. They destroyed my son, stole his money, had him committed, and they are booking a cruise to celebrate. Gus scrolled further down the list. The remaining balance was scattered across dozens of smaller transactions. $32,000 to a spa resort in the Poconos, $18,000 to Neiman Marcus, $12,000 to a jewelry store on Walnut Street, $7,000 to a country club membership. They were eating your money, Vinny. Every cent of it. Living like royalty on your grandson's future. I stood up and walked to the window. The lights of the city blurred before me. I pressed my forehead against the cold glass and breathed. Is there more? I asked. Gus was quiet for a moment. That is never a good sign with Gus. When he hesitates, it means the next piece of information is the kind that changes everything. There is one more thing, he said. His voice dropped half a register. I almost missed it because it was not in the Price Family Holdings account. It was in Chelsea's personal records. I turned around. 3 weeks ago, Chelsea contacted the insurance company that holds Tony's life insurance policy. A $2 million term life policy that you purchased for him when he turned 30. The primary beneficiary was Dominic. Chelsea filed a change of beneficiary form. She removed Dominic. He paused. The new sole beneficiary is Chelsea Price Rossi. The room went silent except for the hum of the servers. $2 million. That was the number. That was the end game. It was never just about the $500,000. That was pocket money, seed capital for the real score. I sat back down. My legs felt unsteady for the first time in days. Walk me through it, I said. Gus pulled up a timeline on screen. 3 months ago, Chelsea starts drugging Tony, builds a pattern of erratic behavior, films the evidence. 2 months ago, she contacts a doctor willing to sign a psychiatric evaluation, gets the paperwork ready. 6 weeks ago, she moves the money through the shell company, buys the car, pays off her parents. 4 weeks ago, she changes the life insurance beneficiary. 3 weeks ago, she has Tony committed for the first time. Tests. The system sees that it works. Last week, she throws him out, takes custody, and triggers the 5150 hold through police. Gus looked at me. The dosage was increasing, Vinny. Dr. Okafor's report says 2 more weeks at that escalation rate, and the next dose could have been fatal. Chelsea was not just stealing from Tony. She was building toward a kill shot. Make him look suicidal. Keep him drugged until he overdoses or his heart gives out. Collect $2 million in insurance. No investigation because the crazy husband everyone already pitied finally did what everyone expected. I stared at the screen. The red line on the map connecting Pittsburgh to Delaware to Ohio to Florida. It was not a money trail. It was a murder plan, drawn in wire transfers. She was killing him, I said. Slowly, deliberately. And she had a $2 million payday waiting at the finish line. Gus nodded. What do you want me to do? I stood up. Print everything. Every transaction. Every date. Every IP address. And Gus, find out who holds the mortgage on Warren's house in Youngstown. Find out every debt that man carries. I want the full picture by morning. You are going to buy his debt, Gus said. It was not a question. I am going to own him, I said. Every brick of his house. Every cent he owes. I am going to become the man who decides whether Warren Price sleeps in a bed or a cardboard box. I picked up the stack of warm printouts from the laser printer and put them in my briefcase. The weight of the paper felt righteous in my hand. Evidence. Ammunition. The raw material of justice. I walked out into the cold Pittsburgh night. The steel mills across the river glowed orange against the dark sky. The city was sleeping, but I was wide awake, and the woman who tried to kill my son had no idea that every dollar she spent was a breadcrumb leading me straight to her throat. I sat in my truck in the parking lot below Gus's office for a long time. The engine was off. The heater was dead. The cold crept in through the windows and wrapped around me, but I did not feel it. I was running the numbers in my head, not the dollar amounts. Those were just evidence. I was calculating the timeline of my son's murder, 3 months ago. That was when Chelsea started. The craft beer, she suddenly began buying. The local IPA. She insisted Tony try. She had done her research. She knew that benzodiazepines dissolved clear in dark liquid. She knew the bitter hops would mask any chemical taste. She stood in her kitchen every evening and watched her husband drink poison from a glass she handed him with a smile. The first 2 weeks the dose was small, just enough to make him foggy, tired, a little confused in the evenings. Nothing alarming. Tony probably thought he was overworked. He probably thought he needed more sleep. Chelsea would have been sympathetic. You look exhausted, honey. Sit down. Let me get you a beer. Then she increased it. Week 3. Week 4. The confusion deepened. Tony started losing time. Whole evenings vanished from his memory. He would wake up on the couch with no idea how he got there, and Chelsea was waiting with her phone, recording him stumbling, recording him slurring, building a library of evidence that would prove to any doctor or judge that Anthony Rossi was losing his mind. By week 6, the doses were high enough to trigger the paradoxical reaction Dr. Okafor described. The dissociative state. Tony would become agitated without awareness. He would knock things over, raise his voice, maybe even shout at shadows, and Chelsea filmed every second of it. She was not documenting a breakdown. She was directing a performance. And Tony was the unwitting actor in his own destruction. Then the insurance change. 3 weeks ago. The moment she moved the beneficiary from Dominic to herself, that was the signal. That was the starting gun. Everything before that point was preparation. Everything after was execution. I pulled out my phone and called Dr. Okafor. It was past midnight, but she answered immediately. Doctor, I said, I need to ask you a direct question. Based on the escalation pattern in Tony's hair analysis, If the dosing had continued at the same rate of increase for another 2 to 3 weeks, what would have happened? There was a pause. A measured, clinical pause. At the rate of escalation I observed, Dr. Okafor said carefully, the subject would have reached a critical threshold within 14 to 21 days. A single large dose at that tolerance level, particularly if combined with alcohol or administered during sleep, could result in respiratory depression, cardiac arrest, death. And it would look like what? I asked. It would present as an accidental overdose, she said. Or a suicide. Particularly if the subject had a documented history of psychiatric instability and substance issues. No medical examiner would question it. The toxicology report would show benzodiazepines in the system. They would check his medical history, see the psych holds, the documented episodes. They would write natural causes or self-inflicted and close the file. I closed my eyes. Thank you, doctor. Mr. Rossi, she said before I could hang up. Her voice was quieter now. Less clinical. More human. What she was doing to your son is one of the most sophisticated poisoning schemes I have encountered in 30 years of practice. This was not impulsive. This was premeditated. Methodical. She was 2 weeks away from killing him. I know, I said. And she is not going to get a second chance. I hung up and started the engine. The drive back to the penthouse was silent. No radio. No phone calls. Just the sound of tires on wet pavement and the steady rhythm of the wipers pushing snow off the windshield. The city passed by in streaks of amber streetlight and dark windows. I called Rachel from the highway. She answered on the first ring. It is murder, Rachel, I said. Not attempted battery. Not fraud. She was building toward a lethal dose. 2 more weeks, and my son would be dead. And she had a $2 million life insurance policy waiting to cash. Rachel was quiet for 3 seconds. In Rachel's world, 3 seconds of silence is an eternity. This changes the classification entirely, she said. Wire fraud across state lines, combined with conspiracy to commit murder. That is federal. That is RICO territory, if we can prove the family coordinated. We are not talking about a custody dispute anymore, Vincent. We are talking about 25 to life. Good, I said. Keep building the case. But do not file anything yet. I want them comfortable. I want them spending money, and laughing, and planning their cruise. I want them so relaxed they do not see the blade until it is already across their throats. Understood? Rachel said. I will have the full federal brief ready to submit within 48 hours. Whenever you give the word. I pulled into the underground garage of my building and took the private elevator up to the penthouse. The lights were off. Tony was asleep in the guest room. I stood in his doorway for a moment, watching him breathe. His chest rose and fell steadily. No restraints. No fluorescent lights. No leather straps. Just a clean bed and silence. I looked at him and saw the boy he used to be. 10 years old, helping me carry steel beams at the plant on Saturdays. 14, arguing with me about football at the dinner table. 22, shaking my hand at his graduation with tears in his eyes. I had promised that boy a life, a future, a name that meant something. I had almost lost him. 2 weeks. 14 days between my son being alive and being a body on a coroner's table with a stamp that read accidental overdose. 14 days between Dominic having a father and growing up visiting a headstone. I closed the door softly. Tomorrow, I would follow Chelsea. I would watch her drop my grandson off at whatever hole she was hiding him in. I would document every lie, every indulgence, every cent she spent while her son ate scraps. And then I would begin buying her family's debt, piece by piece, until I owned the roof over their heads and the ground beneath their feet. But tonight, I let my son sleep. He had earned that much. The poison was leaving his system. The truth was gathering like a storm. And in the morning, the hunt would begin. Thursday morning, 6:45. The sun had not risen yet, but the sky was lightening to a bruised gray over the rooftops of the East End. I was parked 3 houses down from the home I helped Tony buy 4 years ago. A nice colonial on a quiet street in Edgewood, blue shutters. A basketball hoop in the driveway that Tony installed the week Dominic turned 5. The lawn was white with frost. I had been sitting in my truck since 5:30, engine off, coffee going cold in my hand. The telephoto lens from my construction site camera sat on the passenger seat. At 6:50, the garage door opened. The black BMW X7 backed out, its fresh paint gleaming under the streetlights. Chelsea was behind the wheel. Oversized sunglasses despite the gray sky. Hair blown out, looking like a woman on her way to brunch, not a mother preparing her child for school. She turned left toward the highway. I waited 10 seconds, then followed. 2 cars between us. Standard surveillance distance Gus had taught me during the corporate espionage job. I expected her to head north toward Fox Chapel, where the private academies were clustered. Bright-eyed schools with green lawns, and teachers who spoke 3 languages. The kind of place a concerned mother would send her only child. The kind of place that cost $5,000 a month in tuition. She did not go north. She merged onto the Parkway East and headed into the city. Past downtown. Past the universities. Past the hospitals. The neighborhoods began to change. The glass towers gave way to boarded-up row houses and vacant lots filled with frozen trash. We were heading deep into Homewood, a part of Pittsburgh where a $90,000 BMW drew stares like a diamond in a coal mine. Chelsea slowed down. She navigated through a maze of potholes and cracked pavement until she pulled up in front of a dilapidated single-story house on a dead-end street. There was no sign, no playground, no colorful banners welcoming children, just a chain-link fence sagging under the weight of dirty snow and a hand-painted board nailed to the porch railing that read, Miss Brenda's Childcare. I parked around the corner where I could see the front door through my telephoto lens. Chelsea got out. She opened the rear door and pulled Dominic from his car seat. My grandson was wearing a thin jacket. Not the puffy winter coat I bought him last Christmas. A thin windbreaker barely fit for October, let alone December in Pittsburgh. He was clutching his backpack straps with both hands, his small face tight with an expression that no 6-year-old should carry. Resignation. Chelsea did not kneel down. She did not hug him. She did not straighten his collar or kiss his forehead, or say, "Have a good day, buddy." She took his hand, marched him to the front door, and rang the bell. A heavy-set woman in a stained sweatshirt and slippers opened the door. Chelsea pushed Dominic inside, handed the woman a fold of cash, exchanged exactly 4 words that I could not hear, and turned on her heel. The door closed. My grandson disappeared behind it. Chelsea walked back to her BMW. She checked her phone. She smiled at something on the screen. She got in, adjusted her mirror, and drove away without looking back at the house. Not once. I sat in my truck gripping the steering wheel so hard the leather creaked. My jaw was clenched tight enough to crack a molar. I wanted to kick that door down. I wanted to walk in there, pick up my grandson, carry him to my truck, and drive away. I wanted to wrap him in the warmest coat money could buy and tell him his grandfather would never let anyone hurt him again. But I could not. Not yet. Chelsea had the emergency custody order. If I took Dominic now, I would be the kidnapper. I would be the dangerous grandfather the police were warned about, and Chelsea would use it to bury Tony permanently. I took photos, 12 of them. The house, the sagging fence, the peeling paint, the crack in the front window, patched with duct tape, the hand-painted sign. I marked the GPS coordinates on my phone. I documented the time, 6:58 in the morning. This was evidence. This was proof that the woman who charged $5,000 a month for her son's elite education was dumping him in an unlicensed basement operation that probably cost $200 a week in cash. Then I followed the predator. I caught up to the BMW 3 blocks later. She was driving fast now, heading back toward the city center. She pulled into the valet circle of the Omni William Penn Hotel downtown. I watched from a parking garage across the street as she tossed her keys to the attendant and disappeared inside. Her walk was light, carefree, the walk of a woman without a single burden on her conscience. She emerged 2 hours later. Her skin was glowing. Her shoulders were relaxed. She had spent the morning in a spa, while her son sat in a cold house with a stranger. A second car pulled up. A silver Mercedes. Diane Price stepped out, wearing a fur-trimmed coat and gold earrings that caught the weak winter sun. Mother and daughter embraced like old friends, reuniting after a long separation. They were laughing. Diane said something, and Chelsea threw her head back in delight. They walked arm in arm into the Grand Concourse restaurant 3 blocks away. I followed on foot and watched through the window as they were seated at a table near the fireplace. White tablecloths, wine glasses, a waiter hovering with menus the size of road atlases. I stood on the sidewalk in the cold and watched them eat. Lobster, steak, a bottle of wine that probably cost more than what Miss Brenda charged for a week of watching my grandson in front of a television. They ate for 90 minutes. They laughed. They leaned in close and whispered. They looked like 2 women celebrating a promotion, not a grandmother and mother navigating the heartbreak of a family torn apart by mental illness. When they left the restaurant, they walked to Walnut Street and disappeared into a string of boutiques. I did not follow them inside. I did not need to. The shopping bags they carried out told the story. Nordstrom, Tiffany, Louis Vuitton. My grandson was eating whatever Miss Brenda had in her cupboard. My son was recovering from poison in a hidden apartment, and these 2 women were spending stolen money on handbags and jewelry and spa treatments and laughing about it over $100 steaks. I walked back to my truck. I sat behind the wheel and breathed. In through the nose, out through the mouth. The way my father taught me when I was 15, and a foreman tried to cheat us on a steel delivery. Control the rage. Channel it. Use it. She was eating my money, living like a queen on the corpse of my son's dignity. And my grandson was eating crackers in a cold house with a stranger who could not be bothered to answer the door without slippers. Not for long. Not for 1 day longer than absolutely necessary. Tomorrow, I would own their world, and they would not even see it coming. Thursday afternoon, 4:15. The winter sun was already fading behind the skyline, turning the city into a silhouette of steel and shadow. I was parked on a residential street in Squirrel Hill, 2 blocks from where Chelsea had stopped to pick up Diane from a hair appointment. My truck was tucked between a delivery van and a dumpster. Invisible. I put on my headphones and connected to the live audio feed. Gus had planted a listening device under the passenger seat of the BMW 2 nights ago, slipped it in while the car sat in Chelsea's driveway at 3 in the morning. The mic was military grade, the size of a thumbnail, hardwired into the vehicle's Bluetooth system. Every word spoken inside that car came through my headphones crystal clear. For the first 20 minutes, there was nothing. Engine noise, the hiss of the heater, the muffled thump of a pothole. Then the passenger door opened and closed. Diane's voice filled my ears, bright and satisfied. God, I needed that blowout. Diane sighed. My shoulders have been in knots all week. Chelsea laughed. From what? You have not lifted a finger since Tuesday. From the stress, dear. The emotional stress of watching my daughter execute the performance of a lifetime. You deserve an Oscar, Tiffany. Honestly. The crying, the trembling, that thing you did with the tissue at the police station. Magnificent. Chelsea's voice came back warm and amused. I learned from the best, Mom. You should have seen Harrison's face. The old fool stood there in his bathrobe, looking like someone had just told him Santa Claus was not real. My jaw tightened. I adjusted the volume. Did he transfer the tuition money yet? Diane asked. The $5,000 for that fancy school? Not yet, Chelsea replied. The engine hummed as she accelerated onto the highway. But he will. He always does. He thinks Dominic is at some elite academy, learning Mandarin and violin. If he knew the kid was at Brenda's eating Cheerios and watching cartoons all day, he would stroke out on the spot. Diane cackled. That is $5,000 a month pure profit. Genius. How long can you keep that going? As long as the old man keeps writing checks, Chelsea said. And he will. He is desperate to be the good grandfather. He will pay anything to feel like he is saving those kids from their crazy father. I pressed my fingernails into my palm until I felt the skin break. Keep listening. Do not react. Record everything. Diane's tone shifted. Lower. More conspiratorial. How is Tony? Any word? Chelsea snorted. His father got some expensive lawyer to spring him from the hospital. Already. Can you believe it? 24 hours. I thought we had 72. That is a problem, Diane said. If he clears his head, he might start poking around the accounts again. He will not, Chelsea said confidently. He is a wreck. I saw him before the cops took him at the old man's house. He could barely stand. He was shaking like a wet dog. The dosage is working perfectly. Even without me giving it to him directly, the residual effects will keep him foggy for at least another week. But what about after that? Diane pressed. What if he comes back? What if his father puts him in some recovery program and he gets clean? There was a pause. Then Chelsea spoke again, her voice casual, almost bored. He will come back, Mom. He always does. He has nowhere else to go. He loves Dominic too much to stay away. And when he shows up at the door begging to see his son, I will be the forgiving wife. I will make him dinner. I will hand him his favorite beer. And I will put a little extra in it. Diane hummed approvingly. Just keep him foggy until the hearing. That is all we need. 3 weeks. The custody hearing is in 3 weeks. If he shows up to that courtroom looking like a zombie, stumbling over his words, the judge will give me everything. Full custody. The house. Alimony. Child support. Based on the old man's income. And once you have the permanent order, Diane continued, it does not matter if Tony gets clean. You will own him. He will never see that boy again without your permission. Chelsea laughed softly. Poor Tony. He probably thinks he is losing his mind. He probably thinks it is genetic. His mother had anxiety. Right? He probably thinks he inherited something terrible. Diane joined the laughter. A cold, mean sound that made my stomach turn. That hazelnut beer was the best idea you ever had. Bitter enough to hide anything. There was a brief silence. Then, Chelsea asked the question I had been waiting for. What about Vinny? He looked suspicious the other night. He was staring at my car for a long time. Diane dismissed it immediately. Vincent is old, she said. He is retired. He built some buildings 40 years ago, and now he sits in his big house feeling important. He will not do anything. He is too soft to fight the mother of his grandson in court. He will write checks and stay out of the way. Old men like him just want peace and quiet. They do not want war. The audio went quiet for a moment. Just the sound of tires on pavement and a turn signal clicking. You are right, Chelsea said. He is harmless. Just a checkbook with a heartbeat. They both laughed. I reached up and removed the headphones. I placed them carefully on the passenger seat. My hands were steady. My breathing was even. I sat in the silence of my truck and let the cold seep in through the windows. Soft. They thought I was soft. Old. Harmless. A checkbook with a heartbeat. I looked at my reflection in the rearview mirror. The face that looked back was not soft. It was carved from 67 years of concrete dust, union negotiations, city hall corruption, and burying a wife at 54. It was the face of a man who had poured foundations in January with frostbitten hands. A man who had stared down mob-connected contractors and won. A man whose name was stamped into the steel of half the bridges in this state. I smiled. It was not a warm smile. There was no humor in it. No joy. It was the smile of a man who had just been handed the final piece of a puzzle he had been assembling for days. They thought I was soft because I was quiet. They mistook patience for weakness. They confused restraint with surrender. They had no idea that 3 generations of Rossi steel ran through my veins like rebar. And rebar does not bend. It holds up skyscrapers. I started the engine. Time to go shopping. Not for handbags or jewelry. For mortgages. For debt. For the deeds to every piece of ground the Price family stood on. By this time tomorrow, they would be living in my house. Sleeping under my roof. And they would not know it until I decided to pull it down on top of them. Friday morning. 5:45. The sky outside the penthouse windows was still black. I had slept 3 hours. It was enough. I sat at the glass table with my laptop open, a fresh pot of black coffee steaming beside me, and my phone on speaker. The first call went to a regional bank in Youngstown, Ohio. First Commonwealth Savings. They opened at 6 for business customers on the East Coast. A woman named Karen answered. Commercial Lending Department. Good morning, I said. My name is Vincent Rossi. I am the principal of Rossi Holdings in Pittsburgh. I would like to speak with whoever manages your distressed asset portfolio. Specifically, I am interested in purchasing a non-performing residential note. There was a pause. The sound of typing. One moment, Mr. Rossi. Let me transfer you to our VP of Special Assets. 30 seconds later, a man named David Kramer was on the line. His voice carried the tired relief of someone who spent his days chasing deadbeat borrowers. Mr. Rossi, he said, I am familiar with your firm. How can I help you? You hold a mortgage on a property in Youngstown, I said. Borrower is Warren Price. Loan number ending in 724. The property is a 4-bedroom residence on Elm Drive. I understand the borrower is significantly delinquent. Kramer hesitated. I cannot discuss specific borrower information, Mr. Rossi. I am not asking you to discuss it, I said. I am calling to make you an offer. I want to purchase the note. Full face value. Cash wire. Today, the silence on the other end was heavy. Banks hate non-performing loans. They sit on the books like open wounds, bleeding red ink into quarterly reports. Every banker dreams of someone walking in and offering to take the pain away. The outstanding principal on that note is $452,000, Kramer said carefully, plus accumulated fees and penalties. I will wire $460,000 to cover everything, I said. In exchange, you assign the mortgage and the promissory note to Rossi Holdings. All rights of the creditor transfer to me. I become the bank. Kramer did not ask why. He did not care why. He saw a clean exit from a toxic file. If you can verify funds within the hour, I can have assignment documents drafted by 9. My CFO will send proof of funds in 10 minutes, I said. Send the contract to my attorney. Rachel Mancini, at Mancini Law. I want this closed before noon. I hung up and made the second call. This one went to a collection agency in Cleveland that held the delinquent balance on Warren Price's failed laundromat chain. 3 locations. All closed. Equipment repossessed. But the business debt remained. $298,000 in outstanding vendor contracts, equipment leases, and a small business loan that Warren had personally guaranteed. The collection agency was even easier. They had been carrying that debt for 2 years with zero prospect of recovery. I offered them 80 cents on the dollar. They accepted in under 4 minutes. By 8:30 in the morning, I had wired a combined $750,000 across 2 transactions. By 9:15, the assignment documents began arriving in Rachel's inbox. By 10:45, every signature was in place. Every lien was transferred. Every legal right was mine. I closed my laptop and leaned back in my chair. I owned Warren Price's house. I owned his failed business debt. I owned the roof over his head and the ground beneath his feet. He owed me $750,000 that he could never repay, and buried in the fine print of his mortgage was an insecurity clause. A provision that allowed the lender to call the entire loan due immediately if the borrower's financial condition had materially deteriorated. Warren Price was unemployed. His only income was stolen money funneled through a shell company. His ability to pay was non-existent. I could call the loan today. I could have a sheriff posting a foreclosure notice on his door by Monday, but I did not. Not yet. I wanted him in the room when the walls came down. I called Rachel. "Is the trust paperwork ready?" I asked. She answered immediately. "Done." A dummy, irrevocable trust agreement naming Chelsea as sole trustee of a $3 million educational fund for Dominic. It looks airtight. Beautiful language. Very tempting to someone with dollar signs in their eyes. And the affidavit of financial responsibility? Ready. Rachel confirmed. Standard-looking form. But it is a sworn statement under penalty of perjury. If Chelsea signs it confirming she controlled all household finances and authorized all transactions, she cannot later claim ignorance. She will have confessed to the theft in writing. Good, I said. Now the meeting. I want it at my steel plant. The executive conference room on the 3rd floor. Your plant. Rachel repeated. Not my office? My territory, I said. My building. My table. My rules. I want them surrounded by steel and fire. I want them to feel small. When? Rachel asked. This afternoon. 2 o'clock. Tell Chelsea it is urgent. Tell her. I want to sign everything before the weekend, because I am old and tired, and I just want peace. Tell her to bring Warren and Diane as witnesses. Tell her it is a family affair. They will come running. Rachel said. They cannot resist $3 million. I know, I said. And Rachel, one more thing. Contact Agent Morrison at the FBI field office and call Detective Ruiz at Pittsburgh PD. I want them in the building, out of sight, waiting for my signal. Warrants ready. Rachel paused for just a moment. You are ending this today. I am ending this today. I confirmed. At 2 o'clock this afternoon, in my conference room, surrounded by my steel, Chelsea Price is going to sign her own confession, and then she is going to watch everything she stole disappear, along with her freedom. I hung up the phone and walked to the guest room. Tony was awake, sitting on the edge of the bed, staring at his hands. Get dressed, I told him. Suit and tie. The good ones. He looked up. Where are we going? We are going to the plant, I said. And Tony, when I tell you to walk into that room, you walk in tall. You look her in the eye, and you do not say a word until I give you the signal. Can you do that? Tony stood up. His shoulders were straight. His jaw was set. His eyes were clear. For the first time in months. Yes, sir, he said. I nodded and closed the door. The trap was set. The bait was dangling. And in 4 hours, every member of the Price family was going to walk into my steel mill thinking they were collecting a fortune. They were walking into a cage, and I was going to enjoy locking the door. I stood in front of the bathroom mirror in the penthouse at 11:30 in the morning. I was wearing my second-best suit. Not the sharpest one. Not the power suit I wore to board meetings and bank negotiations. I chose the charcoal one. That was slightly too big in the shoulders. The one that made me look smaller. Older. I loosened my tie until it hung crooked. I unbuttoned the top button of my shirt. I ran my fingers through my hair to muss it slightly. Then, I practiced slumping. Shoulders forward. Head slightly bowed. Weight shifting as if my knees were unreliable. I let the exhaustion of the past 4 days show on my face. The dark circles under my eyes. The lines that deepened when I stopped holding my jaw tight. I looked at my reflection. A tired old man. A grandfather who had been beaten by circumstance and was looking for a way to surrender gracefully. A man who just wanted to write one last check and retire into silence. Perfect. I drove to Edgewood. To the house, I helped Tony buy. I parked in the driveway behind the BMW and sat for a moment, reminding myself of the role. Defeated. Confused. Accepting. I even practiced the sigh, the heavy exhalation of a man who had given up fighting. I walked up the path slowly. I let my hand tremble slightly as I rang the doorbell. Chelsea opened the door. She was wearing cashmere loungewear that probably cost more than a car payment. Her eyebrows rose when she saw me. But she recovered quickly, shifting into her default expression of guarded concern. "Vincent," she said, "I was not expecting you. Is everything okay? Is Tony? Can I come in?" I interrupted. I kept my voice low, tired, stripped of its usual authority. "I just need to sit down for a minute. I have been doing a lot of thinking." She scanned the driveway. No police. No lawyers. Just a broken old man in a rumpled suit. She stepped aside. "Of course, Dad. Come in." The house smelled of vanilla candles. Expensive ones. The living room was spotless. No toys on the floor. No sign that a child lived here. It looked like a showroom, not a home. "Where is Dominic?" I asked. "At school," she said smoothly. "Bright horizons. He loves it there. The structure is good for him during all this instability." I nodded, swallowed the bile. "Good," I said. "Stability is important." I sat at the kitchen island and put my head in my hands. I rubbed my face. I let out the rehearsed sigh. Chelsea stood on the other side of the counter, watching me with the careful eyes of a predator, assessing whether the prey was truly down or just pretending. "I owe you an apology, Tiffany," I said. I used her middle name, the one her family called her. A small intimacy designed to signal surrender. Her posture relaxed. "An apology?" "Yes," I said. I was angry. I was defensive. When you told me Tony had a gambling problem, I did not want to believe it. He is my son. But I spoke to the doctors. I saw how he was acting. The paranoia. The aggression. You were right. He is broken. And I was wrong to blame you. You were just trying to protect Dominic." Chelsea's shoulders dropped completely. The tension left her face. A small smile touched her lips before she smoothed it into a frown of sympathy. "Oh, Dad," she said. "I tried to tell you. It has been a nightmare. I just want him to get better." "I know," I said. "And he will not get better if I keep enabling him. I realized something last night. If I leave Tony my estate, he will destroy it. Gamble it away in a year. And Dominic will have nothing." I pulled out a leather notebook and opened it to a page of numbers I had written that morning. Chelsea's eyes locked onto it like a hawk spotting a mouse. "I am 70 years old," I said. "I am tired of fighting. I want to set up an irrevocable trust for Dominic. Bypass Tony entirely. I want to seed it with $3 million. Cash. $3 million. The number hung in the air. I watched Chelsea's pupils dilate. Her breath caught. Her fingers tightened on the edge of the counter. "That is very generous," she stammered. "But I need a trustee," I continued. "Someone responsible. Someone who can manage the investments and authorize expenses for Dominic's care, his housing, his education, his lifestyle. It cannot be Tony. He is incompetent. And I am too old. It has to be you, Chelsea. You are his mother. You are the only responsible adult left. Full control?" she asked. Her voice was barely a whisper. "Full control," I confirmed. "I trust you. I see that now. You are a fighter." She walked around the counter and put her hand on my shoulder. I forced myself not to recoil. "Dad," she said softly, "I would be honored. I will protect that money with my life." I stood up slowly, using the counter for support. "My lawyer. Rachel Mancini, is drafting the papers right now. I want to sign this afternoon. 2 o'clock at my steel plant. The executive conference room. Can you be there? I will be there, she promised. Bring your parents, I added. Warren and Diane. I want them as witnesses. And honestly, I want to apologize to them too. I was rude. We should be united for Dominic's sake. That is a wonderful idea. Chelsea beamed. They will be so happy. I walked out. Down the path. Into my truck. I pulled away slowly. Carefully. Like a fragile old man navigating an icy road. The moment I turned the corner and the house disappeared from my mirror, I pressed the accelerator. The engine roared. I put on my headphones. The kitchen bug was live. Chelsea's voice exploded through the speakers immediately. She was already on the phone. Mom, pick up. You are not going to believe this, Diane answered. What happened? Did Tony come back? Better. The old man was just here, Vincent. He is completely broken, Mom. He bought the gambling story. He thinks Tony is a lost cause. He wants to give us $3 million. $3 million. A trust fund for Dominic. And he wants me as sole trustee. Full control over everything. Diane screamed so loud the audio distorted. $3 million! Oh my God. We did it. We actually did it. He wants to sign today. 2 o'clock. At his steel plant. He wants you and Dad there as witnesses. He wants to apologize to you. Tell him yes. Tell him we will be there with bells on. Oh, Tiff. You played him perfectly. The stupid old fool, Chelsea laughed. I have to call Dad. Tell him to cancel his bankruptcy meeting. We do not need it anymore. We are getting a $3 million bailout. I removed the headphones. The silence in the truck was sweet. I allowed myself one smile. Small. Cold. The smile of a man watching his prey walk willingly into the trap. Hook. Line. Sinker. See you at 2 o'clock, sweetheart. Bring your parents. Bring your greed. I will bring the cage. The executive conference room at Rossi Steelworks sits on the 3rd floor of the main building, directly above the fabrication hall. The floor vibrates faintly with the rhythm of the machinery below. Through the reinforced glass windows on the south wall, you can see the blast furnace glowing orange in the yard. It is a room designed for serious business. A room where men sign contracts worth millions and shake hands over deals that shape the skyline of a city. The table is solid steel. Custom fabricated in our own shop 15 years ago. 12 feet long, polished to a mirror shine, cold to the touch. The chairs are black leather. The walls are exposed brick and industrial beam. There is nothing soft in this room, nothing decorative. It is a room that says, I built this with my hands, and you are sitting in my house. I arrived at 1:30. I positioned myself at the head of the table. Rachel sat to my right, her posture flawless, a stack of documents arranged with surgical precision in front of her. She was wearing her court suit. Black. Sharp. The suit she wore when she intended to destroy someone. On the table beside me, face down, were 3 folders that Chelsea would never see coming. The toxicology report. The bank transfer records. The foreclosure notice. And on my phone, queued up and ready to play through the room's built-in speaker system, was the recording from the BMW. Beneath the table, my phone showed a text thread with Detective Ruiz. His team was in the parking lot. 2 unmarked cars. FBI agent Morrison was with them. They were waiting for one word from me. I checked my watch. 1:55. I adjusted my tie to hang crooked again. I slumped my shoulders. I became the old man one more time. The final performance. At exactly 2 o'clock, the conference room doors opened. My assistant escorted them in. Chelsea entered first. She was wearing a navy blue dress that fit her like it was sewn onto her body. New. Expensive. Probably purchased yesterday on Walnut Street with the money she stole from my grandson's future. Her hair was swept up. Her chin was high. She walked into my conference room like she was walking into her own coronation. Behind her came Warren Price. He was shorter than I expected from Gus's photos. A stocky man in a tan suit that pulled tight across his belly. He wore a gold watch that caught the fluorescent light. His smile showed too many teeth. It was the smile of a man who thinks he just won a hand of poker with someone else's chips. Last came Diane. She was draped in the jewelry I had watched her buy on Walnut Street yesterday. Gold necklace, diamond earrings, a silk scarf knotted at her throat. Her eyes swept the room, calculating the value of everything she saw. The exposed beams, the steel table, the view of the furnace below. She was pricing my life's work in her head. "Harrison," Warren boomed. He crossed the room with his hand extended. His palm was damp when I shook it. "What a beautiful facility. I had no idea you had all this. Really impressive. Thank you for coming," I said. I kept my voice thin. Grateful. I gestured to the chairs across from me. "Please, sit down. Let us get this done so I can sleep tonight." They sat. All three of them. Comfortable. Entitled. Hungry. They looked at the documents on the table like wolves circling a wounded deer. Rachel cleared her throat. She did not smile. "Let us begin," she said. Her voice was professional and cold. "Mr. Rossi has instructed me to expedite the creation of the Rossi Family Trust for the benefit of his grandson, Dominic. As discussed, the initial funding amount is $3 million. I saw Warren nudge Diane under the table. Their eyes lit up in unison. $3 million. They could taste it. However, Rachel continued, because Mr. Anthony Rossi is currently incapacitated and unable to manage financial affairs, we need to establish a clear chain of custody for the assets. We need a trustee who has demonstrated complete financial responsibility for the household and the child. That would be me," Chelsea said quickly. She sat up straighter, smoothing her dress. Vincent said I would be the sole trustee. "Correct," I said. I nodded at her with the weary gratitude of a man handing over the reins. "You know what Dominic needs. You have been managing everything while Tony was unable to function. I trust your judgment." Rachel slid a thick document across the steel table. "This is the trust agreement," she explained. "It outlines your powers, your responsibilities, and the disbursement schedule. But before we sign the acceptance of funds, we need one piece of administrative housekeeping." Warren frowned slightly. "Housekeeping? Standard due diligence?" Rachel said smoothly. "To transfer assets of this magnitude, we need to certify that the proposed trustee has in fact been the primary financial decision-maker for the beneficiary's household. This protects the trust from any future legal challenge by Mr. Anthony Rossi should he recover." It was a beautiful lie. Rachel framed the trap as protection for Chelsea's power. A way to make her position unchallengeable. "Oh, absolutely," Chelsea said eagerly. "I have been doing everything. Tony has been useless for months. I pay the bills. I manage the accounts. I make every financial decision." "Excellent," Rachel said. She pulled a single sheet of paper from beneath the stack and placed it in front of Chelsea. "Then I need you to sign this affidavit of financial responsibility. It is a sworn statement confirming that for the past 6 months, you have had sole access to and control over all joint accounts, that you authorized all major transactions, and that you were fully aware of the allocation of all funds, including the investment capital held in Dominic's Education Trust." Chelsea did not read it. She did not pause. She did not ask a single question. She heard the words sole control and grabbed the Mont Blanc pen Rachel offered. She signed with a flourish and pushed the paper back. "Perfect," Rachel said. She notarized the signature with a stamp. "And Mr. and Mrs. Price, as witnesses to your daughter's competency and as recipients of her family support, I have a similar attestation for you. simply confirming that you can verify Chelsea's sound management. Warren laughed. He took the pen. Support? She is a wonderful daughter. Helps us out all the time. We are a close family. He signed. Diane signed beside him without hesitation. They thought they were signing character references. They thought they were validating Chelsea's right to $3 million. They had no idea. They had just signed confessions. Chelsea had admitted under oath that she controlled the money. Warren and Diane had admitted to receiving stolen funds. They had wrapped themselves in a legal straitjacket and tied the knot themselves. Rachel collected all 3 signed pages. She placed them neatly into a folder. The sound of the folder, closing, echoed through the room, like the click of a lock. Wonderful, Warren said. He rubbed his palms together and leaned forward. So, the check. Do we get that today? I know banks close at 5 and I would hate for there to be any delays. I looked at Warren. I looked at the greed carved into every line of his face. I looked at Chelsea, who was smiling at me with the serene satisfaction of a woman who believed she had won everything. I sat up. Slowly. I adjusted my tie. I straightened it. I rolled my shoulders back and felt my spine align. The slump was gone. The trembling hands were gone. The watery eyes were gone. I let the mask fall away like a dead skin, and for the first time in days, I let them see who I really was. The warmth left my face like heat, leaving steel in cold water. I looked Warren dead in the eye. He was still smiling, still waiting for his payday, still believing that the world owed him something. There is no check, Warren, I said. My voice was steady, strong, full of a quiet authority that made the air in the room change temperature. The smile froze on his face. His hand stopped mid-rub. What? There is no trust fund, I continued. There is no $3 million. There is no bailout. And the only thing you are going to receive today is the truth. Chelsea's head snapped toward me. Her perfectly composed face cracked. But you said, the papers. We signed. I pointed to the folder Rachel was holding. Those papers are not trust documents, Chelsea. Those are confessions. You just admitted under penalty of perjury that you had sole control over all household finances. You admitted you authorized every transaction. You admitted you managed the funds in Dominic's education trust. That means you cannot blame Tony. You cannot claim he gambled it away. You just signed a sworn statement confirming that everything that happened to that money happened under your authority. The color drained from Chelsea's face. It happened fast, like someone had pulled a plug. She went from flushed confidence to bone white in 3 seconds. What is going on? Diane shrieked. Her voice was high and thin. Harrison, have you lost your mind? No, Diane, I said. I found it. I reached for the remote control on the table and pressed a button. The 85-inch screen mounted on the wall behind me flickered to life. The audio filled the room. Surround sound. Every speaker in the ceiling, carrying Diane's own voice back to her, in perfect digital clarity. He will come back. He is weak. And when he does, you be the sweet, forgiving wife. You make him dinner. You hand him his favorite beer. And you put a little extra in it. Diane's jaw dropped. Her hand flew to her mouth. She stared at the screen, then at me, then at the corners of the ceiling, where she now realized microphones must have been. But there were no microphones in this room. The recording was from her daughter's car. From a conversation she thought was private. From words she thought would never be heard by anyone except her co-conspirator. I let the recording play. Chelsea's voice joined in. He is completely broken, Mom. He bought the gambling story. The stupid old fool. $3 million. We did it. We actually did it. I pressed pause. The silence that followed was absolute. Nobody breathed. But wait, I said. There is more. I clicked the remote again. The screen changed. Now it displayed a spreadsheet. Gus's forensic accounting laid out in clean columns. Every dollar traced, every transaction dated. $212,000 to First Commonwealth Savings. Mortgage payment. $91,000 to BMW of Pittsburgh. $43,000 to Royal Caribbean. The numbers scrolled down the screen, like a verdict being read. And finally, I said, pressing the remote one last time, the screen displayed Dr. Okafor's toxicology report. The red spikes on the chart. The escalating dosage pattern. The chemical names in clinical black type. Benzodiazepine. Zolpidem. 3 months of systematic poisoning. This, I said, pointing to the screen, is proof that you drugged my son for 3 months. You destroyed his mind to steal his money and his child. And according to my physician and my attorney, the dosage escalation was 2 weeks away from killing him. This is not fraud, Chelsea. This is attempted murder. Chelsea started shaking. Not trembling. Violent. Full body shuddering. She looked at her parents for rescue, but they were frozen in their own horror. Warren was staring at the bank transfers on screen with the expression of a man watching his own house burn down. Diane was weeping silently, mascara running in black, streaks down her cheeks. You cannot prove I did it, Chelsea whispered. Her voice was thin, desperate. Anyone could have put that in his beer. He did it to himself. He is an addict. We tested the beer in your refrigerator, Chelsea, I said. The craft IPA you insisted only Tony drink. The lab found enough sedative in that bottle to put a man in a coma, and your fingerprints are on the container of crushed pills we found taped to the underside of the bathroom sink. Her eyes went wide. She had forgotten about the stash. Warren stood up. His face was purple. His chair scraped back with a screech. We are leaving, he announced. Right now. You can talk to our lawyer. This is entrapment. Sit down, Warren, I said. I did not shout. I did not raise my voice above a conversational tone, but the command hit the room like a thunderclap. It came from a place so deep and so certain that Warren's legs buckled before his brain could override them. He sat back down. His hands were shaking. You have a bigger problem than lawyers, I said. I picked up the final folder and slid a single sheet of paper across the steel table toward him. You have a housing problem. He looked at the paper. His eyes scanned the letterhead. First, Commonwealth Savings. Assignment of mortgage. Transferee. Rossi Holdings. LLC. I bought your debt yesterday, Warren. I said it slowly, so every syllable landed. Your bank was happy to sell. I now own the note on your house in Youngstown. Every penny you owe. And since you are unemployed with no legitimate income, I have activated the insecurity clause. The entire loan is due immediately. $460,000. Can you write me a check right now, Warren? Warren stared at the paper. His lips moved, but no sound came out. And while we are at it, I continued. I also purchased the outstanding debt on your laundromat chain. Another $298,000. You owe me $750,000 that you will never be able to repay. Your house belongs to me. Your furniture belongs to me. Every single thing you own is collateral in my possession. Diane let out a sound that was not quite human. A wail that came from somewhere primal. My house. My things. Not your house, Diane, I said. My collateral. Chelsea stood up so fast her chair toppled backward onto the concrete floor. The crash echoed off the steel beams. Her composure was gone. Her mask was shattered. Her face was twisted with a feral desperation I had never seen in a human being before. I am taking Dominic, she screamed. Her voice was raw, unhinged. You can have the money. You can have the house. But I am taking my son, and you will never see him again. She turned and ran for the conference room doors. Her heels clicked frantically on the floor. She reached for the handle, but before her fingers touched the brass, the doors swung open from the other side. Slowly, deliberately, and the people standing on the other side were not secretaries. Two uniformed officers from the Pittsburgh Police Department stepped into the conference room. Behind them, a man in a dark suit with an FBI badge clipped to his belt. Detective Ruiz. Agent Morrison. They moved with the calm, practiced efficiency of men who had done this 100 times before. Chelsea stumbled backward. Her heels caught on the fallen chair behind her, and she nearly went down. She caught herself on the edge of the steel table, her knuckles white against the polished surface. "No," she said. The word came out small, almost childlike. "No. This is not happening." "Tiffany Chelsea Price Rossi," Detective Ruiz said. His voice was flat and professional. He did not enjoy this. He did not hate it. He simply did his job. "You are under arrest for aggravated battery with a toxic substance, wire fraud, child endangerment, and conspiracy to commit murder in the first degree." The words landed on the room like stones dropped into still water. Each charge sent a ripple through Chelsea's body. She flinched at battery. She swayed at fraud. She grabbed the table at murder. "No," she said again, louder this time. "You cannot. I am a mother. I have a child. You cannot do this to me." The officers did not slow down. They moved around the table with purpose. One of them took Chelsea's right arm. She yanked it back, twisting her body away. "Do not touch me," she screamed. "This is a setup. He set me up. This is entrapment. I want my lawyer. I want my lawyer right now." The officer took her arm again. Firmly this time. He turned her around and pressed her hands together behind her back. The click of the handcuffs was sharp and final. It echoed off the steel beams and the brick walls and the reinforced glass. It was the most satisfying sound I had heard in my entire life. Agent Morrison turned to Warren and Diane. They were still in their chairs. Warren looked like a man who had just watched his own execution. Diane was sobbing into her hands, her expensive jewelry rattling with each shudder. "Gerald Warren Price," Morrison said. "Diane Louise Price. You are under arrest for money laundering, conspiracy to commit wire fraud, and accessory to attempted murder. Please stand up and place your hands behind your backs." Warren did not stand. He could not. His legs had given out. The officer had to pull him to his feet. When the cuffs clicked around his wrists, he let out a sound that was halfway between a grunt and a whimper. Diane collapsed forward onto the table, weeping openly, her mascara-streaked face pressed against the cold steel. "Please," Diane sobbed. "We did not know. We did not know she was poisoning him. We just thought it was money. Just money." I looked at her. "You knew, Diane," I said. "I heard you tell your daughter to put extra in his beer. I heard you laugh about it. Do not insult my intelligence by lying to me now." She had nothing left. She crumbled. Chelsea was being walked toward the door. An officer on each side. She was fighting. Not physically. She did not have the strength for that. But her voice was a weapon, and she wielded it desperately. "Dad!" She screamed at Warren. "Do something. Call someone. This is not legal. They cannot do this." Warren did not look at her. He was staring at the foreclosure notice on the table. The document that told him his house, his last refuge, belonged to me. He had nothing left to give her. He had nothing left at all. Then the room shifted. The energy changed. A new presence entered through the side door that connected to my private office. And the temperature dropped 10 degrees. Tony walked in. He was wearing a charcoal suit. Clean-shaven. Hair combed. His shoulders were straight, and his chin was level. His eyes were clear, not the glassy, unfocused eyes of the drugged man Chelsea had last seen stumbling in a parking lot. These were the sharp, steady eyes of a man who had walked through hell and come out the other side carrying a weapon called truth. He walked to the center of the room and stopped. He looked at Chelsea. She stopped struggling. The officers paused. Everyone in the room went still. For a long moment, Tony just looked at her. At the woman he had loved. The woman he had trusted. The woman who had poured poison into his drink every night for 3 months and filmed him losing his mind so she could steal his life. "Hello, Chelsea," Tony said. His voice was calm, measured, cold as the steel table between them. "How was the coffee this morning? I hear you ran out of sweetener." Chelsea's face twisted. Tears spilled down her cheeks. "Tony, please. I love you. I did this for us. For our family. You have to understand." Tony did not flinch. He did not waver. He looked at her. The way you look. At a stranger. "Dominic is safe," he said. "I picked him up from that hellhole daycare 2 hours ago. He is warm. He is fed. He is with people who love him. He is going to be fine, Chelsea. And one day, he is going to forget your face." Chelsea shattered. The last thread of composure snapped. She lunged forward against the officer's grip, screaming, "You cannot take him from me. He is my son. I am his mother. He needs me." The officers tightened their hold and pulled her toward the elevator. Her screams echoed down the hallway, bouncing off the industrial walls, growing fainter with each step. "You will regret this. All of you. I will fight this. I will get out. I will take him back." The elevator doors opened. They pushed her inside. The doors closed. The screaming stopped, cut off mid-word, like someone had pressed mute on a television. Silence returned to the conference room. Warren and Diane were escorted out moments later. Warren walked with his head down, a broken man being led to a fate he had earned. Diane shuffled beside him, still crying, still mumbling pleas that nobody was listening to. And then it was just us. Me, Tony, Rachel, and the ghost of everything that had happened in this room. The side door opened again. Small footsteps on the concrete floor. Running. "Daddy." Dominic burst into the room. Mrs. Conti was behind him, but the boy was too fast. He launched himself at Tony with the full force of a 6-year-old who had been waiting days to feel safe. Tony dropped to his knees and caught him. He wrapped his arms around his son and held him so tight, I thought he might never let go. "Grandpa," Dominic said, turning his head to look at me over Tony's shoulder. His eyes were bright, innocent, untouched by the horror that had just played out in this room. "Mrs. Conti made me cookies. Can we go home now?" I walked over and put my hand on Dominic's small head. His hair was soft and warm. "Yes, buddy," I said. "We can go home now." I looked up from my grandson and through the reinforced windows at the blast furnace glowing in the yard below. The molten steel inside burned at 2,000 degrees, hot enough to melt impurities, hot enough to burn away weakness and leave only what was strong. The fire purifies everything. I whispered to no one. And my family had just been reborn from the furnace. 6 months is a lifetime in the steel business. You can pour a foundation. You can watch raw iron become structural beam. You can tear down something rotten and build something unbreakable in its place. I stood at the edge of the fabrication yard on a warm June morning, the sun on my hard hat, the smell of hot metal and diesel filling my lungs. The sounds of the mill surrounded me, welding torches, hammer on steel, foremen shouting orders. To most people it is noise. To me, it is music. The sound of things being built. I looked across the yard and watched my son. Tony was standing near the loading dock in a white hard hat, tablet in hand, directing a crew of veteran ironworkers who had been bending steel since before he was born. 6 months ago, they would have dismissed him as a soft accountant playing dress-up. Today they listened. They nodded. They respected him. Because Tony had earned it. He built a supply chain system that saved the company $400,000 in 1 quarter. He took the mine Chelsea tried to destroy and turned it into something that made our family business stronger than ever. Through the window of the site trailer, I could see Dominic at the drafting table I set up for him, drawing cranes and trucks with colored pencils, humming a song. His cheeks full and pink. He did not ask about his mother anymore. Children know who held them in the cold. They know who let go. Chelsea Price Rossi was convicted on all counts. Aggravated battery, wire fraud, child endangerment, conspiracy to commit murder. 18 years in federal prison, without parole for 12. She sits in a cell in Alderson, West Virginia. Inmate 5173. The designer clothes are gone. The arrogance has been replaced by the hollow stare of someone who threw away everything for nothing. Warren and Diane lost their home 30 days after the arrest. Furniture auctioned. Jewelry seized. Last I heard, they rent a one-bedroom in Gary, Indiana. Warren stocks shelves at a hardware store. Diane cleans houses. Gravity is unforgiving when your life is built on stolen ground. Tony finished with his crew and walked toward me. His stride was confident. He looked like a partner, not a victim. I got the final custody decree yesterday, he said quietly. Full, legal, and physical. Permanent. She gets nothing until her sentence is reviewed. It is done, I said. It is done. He looked at me with something deeper than gratitude. Thank you, Dad. Not for the money. Not for the lawyers. For waking me up. For making me fight when I wanted to disappear. I put my hand on his shoulder. Solid. Strong. You did the fighting, Tony. I just handed you the ammunition. But remember the lesson. The most expensive one you will ever learn. What is that? Never let anyone define your worth. Not a wife. Not a partner. Not even a father. You define who you are by what you build, by who you protect, by what you refuse to tolerate. You are a Rossi, and Rosses do not break. He nodded. I will not forget. Go be with your boy, I said. He smiled and walked toward the trailer. Dominic pressed his face against the window and waved. I waved back. Then I walked to my truck, climbed in, and pulled out of the lot. The city scrolled past me. Bridges, rivers, smokestacks, the skyline I helped build with my own hands. And as I drove, I let the lessons settle into my bones. The things this nightmare taught me, the things I almost learned too late. This life taught me something brutal. Blood does not shield you from betrayal. Sometimes the most dangerous enemy shares your bed. Sometimes the voice that says, I love you, is the one holding the knife. I used to think providing was enough. I thought writing checks meant protection. I was wrong. God does not ask us to simply provide. He asks us to watch over our families. To notice when someone we love begins to fade. My son did not need more money. He needed someone to see him. And I almost looked away too long. Manipulation thrives in silence. It grows in the dark. In the space between what we see and what we choose to ignore. I stayed quiet too long. I chose comfort over confrontation. I nearly lost everything because I could not believe that evil could wear a beautiful face. God reminds us that truth does not need permission. It needs courage. And sometimes courage means burning down the false peace to save the people trapped inside it. And finally this. What some call revenge was never about destruction. It was about justice. Stopping harm. Drawing a line that could never be crossed again. Protecting those who could not protect themselves. God sees every intention and knows the difference between cruelty and mercy. Sometimes the most merciful thing a father can do is become terrifying to the people who threaten his blood. If this story reached something inside you, I am grateful. If you have ever had to stand up when staying silent would have been easier, I see you. Tell me in the comments where you are watching from. Share your story. It matters more than you think. And I read every one. Please like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe so you never miss these stories. Your support helps them reach the people who might be sitting in their own cold places right now, wondering if anyone will come. Thank you for staying with me until the end. The war is over. The good guys won. And the Rossi steel? It is stronger than ever. Forged in fire. Unbreakable.